afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller, and thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille Show. It's great to connect with you through the I Love CVille Network, wherever you get your podcasting and social media content. This show airs upon. A lot we're going to cover on the show. We're going to take national topics and localize them to Charlottesville. We're going to take topics that are happening quarter mile from where our studio is located, half a mile from where our studio is located, and unpack them for you. We're going to talk about a mass murder report that came up on yesterday's program. We asked the question, why is this $1,500,000 mass murder report not being released? Why is it kept on lockdown? We have fresh information we can relay to you on that. A lot we're going to cover on the program, including Decades Arcade expanding on the downtown mall, a $7 million offer for the Carlton Trailer Park. What's next for residents of the Carlton Trailer Park? Ace Biscuit and Barbecue is reopening, and a school board member in Lynchburg donating significant money to Lynchburg City Council, uniquely to Lynchburg. School board members are appointed and not elected. So here you have a wealthy man donating to City Council, who is perhaps influenced to reappoint him. Is it his third term?
Yes.
His third term here.
Third and last.
Pretty significant here. We'll talk about this on the I Love CVille Show. Judah Wickhauer on a two-shot. Judah Wickhauer was fantastic on yesterday's program.
Thank you.
The bar has been raised for you, Judah B. Wickhauer. Great. I have no doubt you will surpass it again today. Before we get to the details on the UVA mass murder report and the first lower third on screen, this happened as we were putting the show together. I was scrolling through Facebook. I saw a post from Carrie Rock. Someone tell Carrie Rock, who's come on this network, we're highlighting what he discussed on Facebook. Carrie Rock is a city resident. He spoke last night before Charlottesville City Council. He and his wife, Colleen, are the founders of Do Good CVille, a nonprofit that prides itself in bettering the Charlottesville area through winter coat drives, through bingo nights at Random Row, and other philanthropic endeavors. Carrie Rock happens to live in the Carlton Avenue neighborhood, if not on Carlton himself. There goes the mayor, Lloyd Snook, the former mayor. And Carrie Rock posted this on Facebook right as we were starting the program. He said he shares a post, Judah, from the Charlottesville Police Department Facebook page. The Charlottesville Police Department last night after City Council meeting said, roads are now back open. Officers with the Charlottesville Police Department are currently investigating a shots fired call at the intersection of Booker Street and Carlton Avenue. A call came in at 10:35 p.m. Monday night, last night, stating that an individual was seen shooting in the street, Judah.
Yeesh.
The intersection is currently shut down for evidence collecting, and casings have been located. At this time, there are no reports of property damage or injuries. Expect police presence in the area of Booker Street and Carlton Avenue while this incident is being investigated. So here's the nitty-gritty. Carrie Rock spoke before council last night. Chief Mike Kochis spoke before council last night. They talked about violence in Charlottesville. Specifically Carlton Avenue, where there's known drug trade activity. After that city council meeting, 4 hours after Carrie Rock spoke, there is drug trade activity and an active shooter in the streets shooting off a gun. Carrie, in his post, where he shared the Charlottesville Police Department post and then offered this commentary from Carrie Rock. This happened 4 hours after we spoke at City Council, stating there's a major drug dealing issue on Carlton Avenue. Carrie Rock writes, this needs to stop, Charlottesville Police Department. Let's step up and get the job done. And then Carrie Rock tags on Facebook Mayor Juan Diego Way and the Councilor Lloyd Snook, who just walked by our studio right there. He says, we're looking at you to lead this city out of this issue. After he tags the Councilor Lloyd Snook, which is one of my favorite things about Councilor Snook, he's very transparent and communicative. He responds on Facebook to Mr. Rock's post. He says, council supports you, Carrie Rock. There was some blowback from some critics of the police department when the bust was made a few months ago on Carlton Avenue. The only arrest was of someone who just happened to be there. That was the older lady who just happened to be in the trap house.
I thought that was over near Rose Hill Drive.
No, that well, according to him, this is her. Mayor Snook or Councilor Snook also says, in other words, they missed the dealers. The criticism was that the police department was picking on the black community as proof of the fact to make one minor arrest. The critics were missing the point, but no one on council was being critical. Then he highlights Councilor Snook. I remember in about 2004 when a federal investigation took down a drug ring in Fifeville. The residents of the neighborhood testified that before the takedown, they were afraid to go out on the street. There were shootings and random gunfire in the street, basically for intimidation. But after the takedown, they got their community back. It was an example of how a successful law enforcement response can lead to a healthy community. That is the result we might hope here. So before we talk about the UVA mass murder report and why it's not being released, and thank you Logan Wells Claylow and Bill McChesney for liking and sharing the show. We appreciate you. I want to highlight this. Crime is down in the city.
Yeah, I believe Kochis pointed that out.
Last night.
Yeah.
Crime is down in the city. Gun violence is down in the city. The police officers are filling the department with new hirees. They're training them well. Chief Kochis highlighted this in the city council meeting. Every neighborhood that is facing crime wants police in their neighborhood. Now they want police that's capable and honest and well-trained and doing the right thing. They don't want sketchy or bad Apple police. They want good police in there. But all the neighborhoods that are facing crime right now want a police presence. Right now, maybe one of the most unsafe aspects of a 10.2 square mile city is the Carlton Avenue neighborhood. And there's families that live there, there's longtime residents that live there, and there's drug dealing that's going on there. Love to see it clean up. I think it will be cleaned up. I understand the plight that Carrie Rock is facing, and I appreciate Carrie Rock, who is the quintessential definition of a leader, speaking before council, utilizing the power of social media to drum up attention and political clout for this issue. First aspect of the show that we wanted to relay to you, first story of the show we wanted to relay to you.
I think one of the things we have to remember is that a lot of the things going on in our community are far more visible now because of social media. And so, you'll see a lot of posts about gunshots going off where, did anybody else hear the gunshots? And I think it magnifies what we see going on, and sometimes gives us a false idea that things are far worse than they are. And while that may be compounded for people in a neighborhood like Carlton that's seeing a lot of this activity, the fact of the matter is what we want is definitive arrests that take care of the problem, rather than what we saw previously with a woman who was in the wrong place at the wrong time and whose arrest is not going to make any changes in what we see on the streets.
Well said. Very well said. I concur. And I'll add this. I have confidence in the police chief to figure this out, and I would bet this is very close to the top of his priority list.
No doubt.
To figure out. Now, the lead of our story, you can set the stage on this. The first headline as a lower third on screen, I believe we have two headlines that we can rotate. First headline is more details on the UVA mass murder report. We have those details for you. The second headline, why is the UVA shooting report not being released? We talked about this on yesterday's program. We wondered with three separate storylines, four storylines. Okay, yesterday's storylines was all about hiding and why are things being hidden from us? Why are we being gaslit by organizations or powerful people? I think Americans felt gaslit or bamboozled by Joe Biden's mental state in that debate. We've seen a Joe Biden that clearly has been slipping, but the Joe Biden that's reading a prompter or shaking hands or kissing babies or saluting the military was very different than the Joe Biden we saw in the Donald Trump debate. I felt gaslit or bamboozled by the Biden team. They clearly were hiding and doing something for him. I've also felt gaslit or bamboozled or flabbergasted with Jim Ryan's response to the pro-Palestine, pepper spraying pickle on grounds at the University of Virginia where students were pepper sprayed by a militarized Virginia State Police.
Yeah.
I also was bamboozled or felt gaslit by why this police report, this audit report on the mass murder of 3 football players, lives taken, 2 other people injured by gunfire, a student at the University of Virginia killing 3, injuring 2 others, why this $1,500,000 report was not being released. How it was portrayed in the media, specifically the Daily Progress, was Albemarle County Commonwealth's Attorney Jim Hingley, who we have tremendous respect for, was the reason for not releasing the report. I asked the question, you asked the question, why is Commonwealth's Attorney Jim Hingley not releasing the report when what we know of Mr. Hingley is one of transparency, communication, accountability, honesty, straightforwardness?
Yeah.
We talked yesterday, gaslight, bamboozling, a theme of yesterday's show, where the Virginia School Board Association is was FOIA'd, Freedom of Information Act, by a Hanover County mom. And this Hanover County mom said, hey, I want to see how you're spending your money. It's taxpayer dollars, Virginia School Board Association. I'm going to FOIA you. The Virginia School Board Association, in the words of Lee Corso, said, not so fast, my friends. I'm not going to give you those financial documents. And now this Hanover County mom is suing the Virginia School Board Association, saying, you have to provide that information. I want to see how these taxpayer dollars are being spent by a Virginia School Board Association that is supposed to be politically neutral, but what appears to lean left. And the Virginia School Board Association is the group that is training school board members on policy, on budget approval, on how to act with superintendents, basically on how to shape public school systems. So if the association that is training public school board members, elected officials, on how to run their school systems is left in nature, is that left-leaning ideology infiltrating, corrupting, brainwashing, impacting the school board members they're training? That's what this Hanover County mom is getting at. Yesterday's program, which I got tremendous feedback on, which you got tremendous feedback on, was about gaslighting, bamboozling, and trying to pull the wool over our eyes, whether as Americans, whether as Virginians, whether as Central Virginians, whether as UVA alumni, UVA fans, supporters, as Charlottesvillians, and as Albemarle Countyans. Today, we have some insight specifically, and this is where you jump in, Judah B. Wickower.
Specifically about the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requests for this report, this independent report, and I think
on the mass murder of UVA, 3 students murdered, $1,500,000 in taxpayers' money.
I think one of the most important things we should remember is that this was an independent report, and so what we got a hold of is two motions, a joint motion from Christopher Jones and the Commonwealth's attorney, and a separate motion that is...
And this is public record?
Yeah, these are both public record. The second motion is from the Commonwealth's attorney, and they spell out very clearly why the report is not being released, and I can completely understand why it's not. And in the joint motion between Christopher Jones and the Commonwealth's attorney, it talks about it doesn't talk about the actual what's in the actual report, but it explains that the report was commissioned by the Board of Visitors of the University of Virginia. One of the, I think, important points is that this alleges that the reports contain inaccurate and misleading information. While much of the information contained in the reports would not be admissible in any trial of this matter, the public dissemination of the reports would nonetheless taint the proceedings and the ability of the citizens of Albemarle County to serve as impartial jurors. Not to mention the fact that public dissemination of these reports would cause unnecessary prejudice and inhibit the court's ability to seat a fair and impartial jury. There's a lot in here. I skimmed through it. There's some good stuff that I underlined. I won't go through all of that. I think the best part is at the end of the separate motion of the Commonwealth's attorney.
He's got it in his hands.
Yeah.
Public record, information we learned of after yesterday's show.
Mm-hmm. And this is the fact that the reports, and I'm reading now, the reports include detailed factual information collected by the special counsels without the protections afforded by the criminal investigative process. In other words, because these reports were compiled by special counsels, they were not compiled by police investigators or by state investigators working for the Commonwealth's attorney. Therefore, that information is not automatically protected. And so these requests, these motions here, are basically trying to get this information protected so that it doesn't cause any problems down the line, whether it's causing a problem for the prosecution or causing a problem for the defense.
Okay, so here's what it is in a very succinct nutshell. In a succinct nutshell, both the prosecution and the defense, prosecution and the defense, not one side, not the other side, but both.
Yeah.
Do not want the report to be released because then media, like the paper, like the TV, the radio, social media, what we're doing, will utilize that report as content for its news cycles. And as that content for its news cycles gets disseminated, a potential jury pool will see said content. Their viewpoint will be tainted, influenced, and that could impact what happens in a courtroom.
Yes. And let me go on. The reports contain detailed factual information which may be deemed inadmissible at trial. The criminal process should be permitted to play out, allowing jurors to receive only the evidence collected by the state through its criminal investigation and deemed admissible by the court, and to reach their own conclusions without any potential impact of being aware of the conclusions drawn by the special counsel. So, yes, both sides want to keep this has nothing to do with UVA. This has everything to do with the eventual trial. Obviously, the prosecution doesn't want information that's going to hurt their case, and the defense also doesn't want information that is going to hurt their client, which, again, may not be admissible in court, because the information, the investigative information that the state will eventually bring against the defendant, the judge will decide what is admissible and what is not. And so releasing this report, which, as I stated at the beginning, contains inaccurate and misleading information, I mean, it's obvious why you would want to keep this out of the public's hands.
So here's what I want to know.
Yeah.
What's the inaccurate and misleading information?
We won't know until after the trial.
That's what I want to know. What is the inaccurate and misleading information? I'm going to push back on what you said about this does not involve UVA.
No, I just mean that the request to not provide the reports doesn't have anything to do with UVA. UVA is not trying to hide anything. This is...
I don't buy that.
How so?
I don't buy that UVA is not trying to hide anything. I think what's in that report is not going to make UVA look very good.
Okay.
I think UVA indirectly may see a personal benefit to its brand, to its infrastructure, its entity, if that report is not released.
That's fair.
I also want to push back on this, that report was promised to the public. The release of that report was promised to the public. And if the promise was not made to release the report to the public, then this would be a non-conversation. So there was a promise made, and why that promise was made was, well, hell, it's $1,500,000 in taxpayer resources that funded this report. They're utilizing your money, my money, the viewers and listeners' money to create this report.
Yeah.
The report was promised to us. The story captivated America. It put Charlottesville and Albemarle County on lockdown. There was multiple police jurisdictions involved in a manhunt. I want to know what's in that report. I want to know what's misleading. I want to know what's inaccurate in that report. Some people would say, Kevin Yancey yesterday said, for example, this case is a slam dunk. You have a man with a gun. He had the proverbial smoking gun. The proverbial smoking gun on his person with eyewitnesses galore.
Right.
Slam dunk case.
Under the presumption of innocence, I think we have to remember the fact that each one of us, whether we're seen with a gun shooting someone or not, is afforded the presumption of innocence until we've been proven guilty.
100% agree with that.
Which is
100% understand that.
Let me also say, is there not we've talked about some friction between the Board of Visitors and UVA, President Ryan.
13-4 right now, 17 members on the Board of Visitors, 13 now appointed by Glenn Youngkin. Glenn Youngkin's 13 appointees, friction with the President Jim Ryan and his platform, his curriculum, his agenda, diversity, equity, and inclusion, safety of Jewish students, the honor code, returning it to prominence, Thomas Jefferson, destigmatizing him, devillainizing him, returning him to prominence, all topics that will come up with the Board of Visitors, especially now that Youngkin has 13 appointees on the BOV.
Yeah. So back to my point, the Board of Visitors commissioned 2 reports investigating the facts and circumstances related to this case. What do we hope to find in here that are we hoping to find information against UVA? Obviously there were some questions surrounding what happened, I understand. But is there a reason these reports can't wait? And do we have any questions surrounding the fact that the Board of Visitors commissioned the reports and do not seem to have a whole lot of love lost between them and the people that this report may hurt? You
should unpack that one. That's a one to unpack right there. He's saying the BOV is commissioned a report that may make Jim Ryan look bad, and his administration look bad. And the BOV is not a fan of Jim Ryan, with some perhaps looking to push Jim Ryan out of office.
I'm also saying if we're complaining about the fact that $1.5 million was spent on these reports, and we deserve to see the reports, should we be questioning who spent that money for the reports and why they spent that money? I mean, I understand we want the answers, but at the same time, do we question the reason for seeking those answers?
I don't think the
BOV.
I don't think the BOV, which greenlit, initiated this report, had much other choice but to do the report.
That's fair.
It's a mass murder that made national news.
Yeah.
And part of the collateral damage of a mass murder that made national news, part of the cleanup, part of the fixing, part of the solving is what did we do right, what did we do wrong? And how you figure that out is a report like this.
That's fair. I'm not alleging anything. I'm just asking questions.
It's a fair question. I think you've brought some A-plus ammunition today. Excellent day for Judah Wickower here at the halfway marker of the I Love CVille Show. Fair question. Fair question. When I go to a parent-teacher conference for our son, and we know what the grade is for our son, prior to the parent-teacher conference, when we talk, my wife and I, with his or her teachers or teacher, we know what the grade is.
Yeah.
The conversation we have is not going to change the grade. The conversation we have is not going to change the past. But the conversation we have with the teacher or teachers will give us data, information, insight onto how to improve the grade next quarter or next semester.
How you can do better.
How can we do better? The same thing with this report. That report's going to assure you that report makes the University of Virginia look bad. The man was reported multiple times of having a gun on his person or a gun on grounds or near grounds.
They knew he had guns in his dorm.
A troubled youth.
Yeah.
And nothing truly was done.
Right.
But we need that information to prevent that from happening again.
UVA, I'm just pointing this out, that UVA probably already has seen the report and hopefully is doing what needs to be done to prevent this from happening in the future.
Comments coming in quickly. Go ahead, finish that thought.
But, of course, we the people also want to see that report and, of course, know that the report is being utilized to protect students in the future.
Neil Williamson, I'm going to get to your comment in a matter of moments. Kevin Yancey, I'm going to get to your comment in a matter of moments. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts on this. Kevin Higgins, thank you for watching the program. Logan Wells Claylow, I'm glad things are sounding and looking better. We appreciate your support on the I Love CVille show. First, let's get to Kevin Yancey. UVA Police Chief Tim Longo promised it would be released long before that report was finished. The promise of releasing the report was a mistake.
Or perhaps premature.
Isn't premature a mistake?
Not necessarily.
Chief Longo is an experienced police officer, a chief of formerly the city of Charlottesville. A report was being done about a mass murder. You're saying he did not have the foresight to know that that report could corrupt or taint jury pools?
How many times have we dealt with? I'm not saying he didn't know or shouldn't have known, but
He promised the report was going to be released.
yeah.
As Kevin Yancey has alluded, that doesn't make him nor the university look good, especially when it's taxpayer dollars that are doing it. He highlights the amount of eyewitnesses that saw the murder happen, 47 of them. Neil Williamson, president of the Free Enterprise Forum, pushes back on Kevin Yancey, the mayor of Waynesboro, and he says, "Are we not interested in a fair trial? Considering both the prosecution and defense are asking for this, I can see the jury impacts of a release prior to the court case. I really do not care what we were promised. Justice comes first."
I agree, and as I pointed out, and you can, if you choose to go looking for these motions, you can, like I said, it says the reports contain inaccurate and misleading information.
I want to know what that inaccurate and misleading information is.
It's a catch-22. You can't know what the information is until the report's released.
Did the University of Virginia commission Barney Fife, Fred Flintstone? Did they commission Greg, Peter, and Bobby Brady to do the report? The $1,500,000 report has inaccurate and misleading information. Who did the report?
I mean, for all we know, it could be that they took quotes from anyone and everyone they could find.
That's an assumption.
Yes, it is an assumption.
That's an assumption.
I'm saying that we have no idea what the inaccuracies are.
Kevin Yancey says this: the delay in releasing that report gives the university time to do damage control. I respond in the comment section to Kevin Yancey by saying bingo. I think Kevin Yancey's been all over this with some accurate perspective.
Yes, but while that may be true, they're not the ones asking that the report not be released.
UVA, Neil Williamson says this: Kevin Yancey, a release prior to the adjudication and after the defense has asked for it to be suppressed is great fodder for an appeal. Should this even be tried in Albemarle County? How can this alleged murderer get a fair trial? Who on this jury pool will not know of this mass murder? Living in Albemarle County, living in Charlottesville, who does not know 3 football players were murdered by a former football player? And if you live in Albemarle County in the city of Charlottesville and you do not know 3 football players were murdered by another former football player, then are you mentally coherent, or do you have the cognizant state of mind of Joseph Biden?
Yes, but a jury trial is not just about guilt or innocence. It's also about how the, what do you want to call it, the hammer of justice is positioned after the verdict.
Good pushback from Judah Wickhauer. Bill McChesney chimes in, the Mayor McIntyre. It reminds me of the duplicate reports that came out regarding the A12 2017 debacle. I'm going to ask you this question, very straightforwardly. After the case is over and the alleged murderer is convicted, What happens if the report is not released then?
Well, there's no reason for it not to be released after that.
What happens if it's not?
Then somebody
Is hiding something.
makes another FOIA request. Who's going to withhold the release of the report?
Or who can hold a release of the report? Kevin Higgins says, Kevin Yancey, you're exactly right. 2 different Facebook pages communicating now live through the talk show. Ginny Who says, Judah is digging deep, and I appreciate it. Judah Wickhauer is on point today, was on point yesterday. Let's bottle this Judah Wickhauer. Fresh haircut, Judah Wickhauer. Stacey Baker Patty watching the program. I got these questions. You chime in. We go to the next topic, because the next topic is a damn good one. The next topic is the Supreme Court has now empowered cities in America with the ability to ban outside sleeping by the homeless population. Mm-hmm. And this should be in the news cycle in Charlottesville, the conversation in Charlottesville. How will City Council, how will Charlottesville, how will City Hall utilize this 6-3 Supreme Court decision to clean up the downtown mall? Is that a fair question, Judah Wickhauer?
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a matter of moments. I have the following questions. What is misleading or inaccurate in a $1,500,000 report? I have this question. Why did Tim Longo promise this report and then backtrack on UVA releasing the report? Tim Longo is an experienced lawman. He had to know that this report could potentially taint a jury pool. I have this question. When will we on record hear from the University of Virginia on when this report is released? Will they say the report is released within 24 hours of conviction? I have this question. Will it take another FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request, for the report to release, or will the university release it on its own? I have this question. The optics, the public relation, the PR piece of this. The longer this report is not released, the longer this report is kept on the hush-hush, the more the story becomes topic of yesteryear. And that distance, that length of time away from the mass murder, fades memory.
Yeah.
And with fading of memory comes lack of significance, unfortunately, or diminished significance, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Time is an asset to the university from a PR standpoint.
That's fair.
Any closing thoughts for you, Counselor Judah Wickhauer?
I think we will see this report eventually. As to its inaccuracies, I think that who knows? I fully understand why they would not want to release this. Again, this is not a report created by the prosecution. This has information that the prosecution may not want. This has information that the defense definitely doesn't want. And this has information that the judge would likely rule inadmissible. And we can't, there's so much involved in this. I think the information is better left to the prosecution, defense, judge, and the jury to decide on. And we're just going to have to wait for our chance with the reports.
Then I'll push back on that by saying, why is this case being held in Albemarle County? If we want true impartiality, and if we truly want an uncorrupted or untainted jury pool, how can a city of 50,000 people when the students are here, and what's Albemarle County's population? I'm looking it up right now. Albemarle County's population of 2022, as of 2022, was 114,534 people. Charlottesville's population in 2022 was 45,373 people. I'm going to add 114,534 Albemarle County's population to the 45,373 of the city of Charlottesville. 159,907 people. Find me a jury of 159,907 people who do not know about a former football player killing 3 other football players and injuring 2. That's finding a needle in a haystack.
I was going to say, are you arguing against yourself?
I'm saying...
Where else are you going to find people that haven't heard that there was a shooting on the UVA campus?
My point is that report is not going to corrupt a jury. The jury already knows what's happened, and the jury has already made up its mind.
But it may taint how they push for a particular...
Football player caught with gun that killed people on a bus, shot 2 others. It was global news. It was national news. Find me people that don't know this story, that don't have their mind already made up. The report ain't going to do jack from untainting or tainting a mindset. I'm sorry I jumped in. You've been phenomenal. Final words. Any other thoughts? We got to go to the next topic at 1:15 with the 2:15 show on the near horizon.
The defense gets to tell their story.
Your argument is a legitimate one, and it's justice.
They're going to argue. I mean, they're likely going to argue whatever, extenuating circumstances, mental distress. I don't know, but the fact of the matter is, I would say
that's exactly what they're going to argue.
Yeah, and some of this information may be prejudicial to that. And while people around Central Virginia and probably all of Virginia and probably outside of Virginia may all be aware of what happened and some of the story behind it, some of this information may change the way people see. It may want someone to go after the guy before the trial. Who knows? The fact of the matter is, let's leave it to the courts.
Okay, fair. Judah Wickower bringing A+ ammunition. Next headline on screen. Philip Dow in Scottsville, he says everything is politically oriented when in hiding things. Kevin Yancey says this: if you don't think the Albemarle County Commonwealth's attorney and Tim Longo are not receiving marching orders from Richmond, you are crazy. Kevin Yancey's take. He also says, what's it say about the Virginia State Police if there are inaccuracies in any report?
But the reports weren't written by the Virginia State
Police. Kevin Higgins says, bingo, Jerry. He says, if my kid was even remotely affected by UVA's negligence, I'd be their worst nightmare. They knew about this nut. This is a $1 billion corporation. They did nothing. He says, so we have a university holding diplomas after it knew a nut job with an arsenal was on a UVA bus. This story hasn't even started.
True.
Kevin Higgins of Greenwood. All right, this next headline is a juicy headline. This is from the Washington Post. This broke on Friday when we were off air. The Supreme Court says cities can ban homeless from sleeping outside. The court was reviewing laws from Grants Pass, Oregon, at a time when states and localities are struggling to deal with a growing number of unhoused individuals. The Washington Post reports the Supreme Court on Friday ruled that cities may ban homeless residents from sleeping outside, rejecting a constitutional challenge to a set of anti-camping laws in a decision that will have a sweeping impact on how local officials address the nation's escalating housing crisis. The Washington Post reports, in a 6-3 decision which broke along ideological lines, the court's conservative majority said that regulations penalizing people for sleeping in public spaces such as parks and streets do not constitute cruel and unusual punishment under the Eighth Amendment, even when a community lacks indoor shelter and its unhoused residents have nowhere else to go. Ladies and gentlemen, this may be your first step and empowering, emboldening, encouraging Charlottesville City Council to clean up homelessness, on the downtown mall and sleeping in parks and public places like in the storefronts of downtown merchant locations?
Sadly, I don't see that happening.
You
I don't know about
tell us
sadly.
why. You have the lower third on screen?
Yeah.
Why do you not see the City Council of Charlottesville? And Bill McChesney says this is also an issue in Albemarle County. But you're saying the political will is not there? The political equity is not there?
Exactly. I think anybody thinking that the Charlottesville City Council has the political will to go down this road is nuts. There's no way they will ever.
I'm going to push back on you. Finish your thought.
Push for this type of legislation.
Councilor Lloyd Snook was recently quoted in the Daily Progress as saying the number one issue he hears from people right now is the downtown mall and needing to clean it up. Those were his exact words.
Okay.
On the record to a reporter in the Daily Progress as of the last week. The number one thing I hear as a counselor is cleaning up the downtown mall, specifically this issue. The Supreme Court is now leverage or ammunition to build political will or political capital to clean up downtown Charlottesville. Would you say this is an issue in downtown Charlottesville, Judah?
I'd say yes, it is. And
Would you say that the police are at a loss right now in what they can do?
They've always been at a loss of what they can do.
Chief Koch has confirmed it sitting across from us on this show.
Yeah.
Said we can do nothing.
Right.
Would you say the merchants on the downtown mall feel overwhelmed by this issue?
Definitely.
2 weeks ago, there was a houseless individual taking a number 2 outside Hamilton's restaurant in front of lunchtime patrons on the planter next to the patio. You want to eat some escargot, have some Chardonnay, some fried oysters, and a little bit of catfish while a number 2 is being taken on the planter as you're spending $100 for lunch.
Doesn't everybody?
That's what's happening.
I'm not saying it's not a problem.
Draft Tap Room. How many times did you and I encounter the guy that was sleeping in the entrance to Draft Tap Room, a shuttered storefront? The question is this. How will local voters, taxpayers, and city and elected officials utilize this Supreme Court as ammunition, leverage, or foundation to make policy change? This should be in the news cycle.
I'm sure it will be soon. I think I don't without better facilities for these people to fall back on, I don't see anything being done in this regard.
It specifically says the Supreme Court decision. The court's conservative majority said that regulations penalizing people for sleeping in public places such as parks, streets, do not constitute cruel and unusual punishment, even when a community lacks indoor shelter. Even when a community lacks indoor shelter.
Them saying it doesn't mean everyone is all of a sudden going to agree with that.
100%.
What I appreciate about this decision is that, and I think a lot of people have a problem with some of the decisions that the Supreme Court has been coming out with recently. What I appreciate about them is that they're actually, I believe, trying to stick to the law and not trying to take the power, and wrest the rights. This is interesting, and it comes from Neil Gorsuch's opinion, where he writes, "The Constitution's 8th Amendment serves many important functions, but it does not authorize federal judges to wrest those rights and responsibilities from the American people and, in their place, dictate this nation's homeless policy." And he's basically saying that we're not gonna tell every city in America how they should react to homelessness, to homeless encampments,
which I respect.
Yeah, and so I think it will be a while before more than one or two cities here and there start to act on this information. I think it will be a while before they decide that. I think there are going to be a lot of conversations in a lot of city halls about whether or not city councils across America should do something if this is a problem, if this kind of thing is a problem in their city.
There it is.
I think we are going to be having this conversation, and I think the conversation is going to go on for quite a while before anyone decides to actually try to enshrine some of this into law.
It's going to
locally.
take political capital. It's
Yeah.
going to take political capital. Ginny Who has some comments. And you know what? You know who's going to keep this in the news cycle?
You?
The I Love CVille Show. The I Love CVille Show is going to keep this in the news cycle. Ginny Who, as soon as I heard the ruling, I thought, great decision, but Charlottesville will never choose to implement it. And she says, yes, Judah, the decisions are actually following the Constitution, which is legit.
Yeah. Yeah. There are places that the Supreme Court is correct.
So this should be a question on the camp during an election year. We talk with school board members. School board members, when we elect school board members, are we going to now ask them, do you align with the Virginia School Board Association,
right,
or do you align with the School Board Member Alliance? Two very different organizations.
Yeah.
That should be a question asked of every school board member moving forward. A question that should be asked of every Albemarle County Board of Supervisor candidate and every city council Charlottesville candidate should be, what is your take on this Supreme Court decision, and how do you utilize this Supreme Court decision to clean up sleeping outside in public places in your respective jurisdiction? It should be a question that's atop the debate or Q&A for every candidate. Mm-hmm. And we will keep it in the news cycle. Kevin Yancey says, how do you punish someone that's gotten to that level of society? I don't think it's punishment. Do you?
Well, there was an interesting point. I don't remember
6 minutes in a short amount of time here.
Here's a quote from someone saying that arresting or fining people for experiencing homelessness is cruel, and it won't solve the problem. I think there's also the issue that what do you do if you're not going to provide a place for them and you won't let them sleep outside? You're essentially telling them, get out of the city. Because what else do you do when you have no other recourse? It's a question that we'll all be talking about for quite a while.
The mayor of Greenwood says, what conditions allowed the mall to come to that? Well, what propelled the mall to come into this condition was COVID. Because the pandemic shut down the downtown mall for an extended period of time. And during that shutdown period, during that lockdown period, the dynamics of the mall changed. There were not as many patrons, comers or goers, shop owners, shopkeepers, managers, general managers, real estate owners on the mall during this period. And in that period of time, the conditions of the mall changed. And one of those dynamics that changed was the houseless population increase with its use of the mall and the storefronts to stay out of inclement weather.
Maybe to some extent, but
100%.
When were the park benches taken out?
Park benches were more taken out because of drug dealing and crime.
Really?
Part of it was taken out by Joan Fenton, the Downtown Business Owners Association at the time, to prevent sleeping on the benches. But she also alluded in those efforts to take the benches out because they were being utilized by drug dealers to peddle drugs.
Okay.
We have a 2:15. Is it 2:15 or 2:30 show? 2:30. 2:30?
Yeah.
That we have to prepare for. So we have less than 7 minutes left on the talk show. Some of these topics might have to extend till tomorrow, like the $7 million offer that's been made for the Carlton Avenue trailer park. What is going to happen to residents of the Carlton Avenue trailer park now that a $7 million offer has been presented to is it two owners, Judah, of the Carlton Avenue trailer park?
I believe it's 3 companies that are owned by 3 siblings.
We need to also talk about 3 companies owned by 3 siblings.
I mean,
Each sibling has their own holding company.
They're probably LLCs or something like that.
So it's owned by a family.
Yeah, essentially.
That's a topic we have to unpack. Can we take the headline $7 million on Carlton Trailer Park and make it the lead of tomorrow's show, please, sir?
All right.
I also want to take the Lynchburg School Board member that's made, is it 40 G's in political donations, Judah?
I don't know the exact amount.
I got that exact number. A Lynchburg School Board member has contributed more than $40,000 to city council campaigns in his own name and through his business since 2022. This story is on cardinalnews.org. Fantastic website. The Lynchburg School Board members are appointed by Lynchburg City Council.
And he's donated to a lot of them.
You have a man who's 3 terms on the school board. The school board shapes the public schools in Lynchburg, who's donated more than $40,000 to a lot of Lynchburg city councilors who then appoint the school board member.
That's not the only story, though, considering the fact that I believe the 2 Democratic members of the current city council voted against him having a 3rd term and lost.
The story is that he's donating to Republican candidates.
He is donating
and Republican councilors.
He is donating to Republican candidates. I mean, Republican council members. However, I believe for his 2nd term, the council was largely Democratic, and not a single person was against him going into his 2nd term.
It's a great story to unpack on a talk show.
It is a good story.
A lot of layers to that.
But I don't think it's so simple as just, he's... Come on.
Let's put that...
If you're a Democrat, are you going to donate to Republicans? If you're a Republican, are you going to donate to Democrats?
For the sake of time and for preparation for the next show, let's put that in slot 4 tomorrow. In slot 1 tomorrow, we got 2 headlines for tomorrow. Slot 1 tomorrow, we'll do the Carlton Avenue $7 million trailer park. Slot 4 tomorrow, the Lynchburg School Board member and the 40 Gs. I want some positive news I want to get out there. 90 seconds that we can offer some positive perspective. You ready? Decades Arcade is expanding on the downtown mall. This arcade, which originated in the Cathy Shopping Center in Belmont, that's the same shopping center of Belmont Pizza, recently opened on the downtown mall and is enjoying so much success that it's expanding into the storefront next to its location on the mall.
Yeah.
It's adding more arcade games and has more room. Have you been to Decades?
I haven't been in there yet.
You need to go. You would love it. Do you like pinball? Skee ball? Do you like shooting games? Riding games? Throwing games?
I like action games.
Action games?
Yeah.
What's what's that stuff where you dress up as people? Legrees?
LARPing?
LARPing? You like LARPing? You like wearing tights and scarves and bandanas and carrying around swords in parks?
I've never worn tights. I've never carried swords.
Yes, you have. Great Bubini. We didn't wear tights that day.
I didn't wear tights.
You were Robin, didn't you? No, I was Robin. You were Jeeves. The Jeeves were... No. Were you Jeeves?
It's Alfred.
You were Alfred.
Yeah.
No tights for Alfred?
Alfred, no, I don't think he ever wears tights.
I thought you were a LARPing guy. You're not a LARPing guy?
I've never gotten into LARPing.
Apologize. Okay.
I do like role-playing games, but
What kind of role-playing? Should I ask that question?
The answer's not going to...
Should I... Is it... What kind of role-playing?
Like, I can give you the generic answer, D&D, Dungeons & Dragons.
Okay.
But
I thought it was more like...
that's not specifically what I play.
TNA. Sorry.
I don't know what...
The maturity level
like
of...
whips and chains and basement dungeons.
We're going to leave it alone. The maturity level of yours truly. And then another bit of good information on the I Love CVille show. Ace Biscuit and Barbecue has reopened after a fired employee broke into the restaurant and basically destroyed the restaurant.
Yeah.
And it was closed for weeks.
What was it, over $50,000 worth of damage?
Yeah.
Ugh, it's terrible.
Terrible.
But we're very happy that they've got everything fixed up and they're back open.
Tuesday edition of the I Love CVille show. Judah Wickower on fire today. Back-to-back A++ days for Judah B. Wickower. Carried the show, Judah Wickower, you did. Excellent work today. You have 2 headlines for tomorrow. The White Mountain Ministry show featuring Nate Kibler, live in 59 minutes on the I Love CVille Network. So long, everybody.